Welcome, everybody. It is time for a new episode of IndieSeen. And we've got a very special episode today. We've got a former guest host. We have a former guest. We're going to be talking about a new movie that is now in theaters. I'm pleased to say that we're talking about Friendship, the new A24 film, and we're welcoming back Jeff York, who joined us a couple episodes ago to co-host, and also Raphael Sbarge, one of the co-stars of Friendship. So we're going to get the inside scoop on the making of the movie, and we're going to talk about A24, and also Raphael, your recent adventures at the Cannes Film Festival.
Right.
So a lot of exciting things coming up. How you doing?
All's well. Thank you. I'm better now that I'm not muted. Yes. Right.
All right. Excellent. Well,
none of us have been to Cannes except Raphael, I think.
That's right. So that'll just be new information for all of us.
That's right.
But before we get to that, because this is IndieSeen, Sujewa, we have to talk about 53 Spaceships to kick things off. You recently kicked off a GoFundMe for the project. It is finally live, and all the information will be down below. But how's it going? Tell us about the campaign.
It's awesome. Launching any kind of a fundraising project when it's public, when information is public, it helps you focus, helps you figure out where the money is coming from and when. So I'm having a great time getting things started. The GoFundMe is interesting because you can keep that going forever or a very long time. And you can add money that you're assigning to the movie that are not through direct donations, like work pay, ticket sales, merchandise sales that support the project. So filmmakers who are fundraising should take a look at GoFundMe as a way to organize everything, and later on maybe do Indiegogo, Kickstarter, direct donations on their site, something like that. So yeah, I mean, this is a very interesting indie film fundraising is a little talked about, but a very interesting and a very creative field. So we should probably do an episode on, or some episodes on indie film fundraising soon for IndieSeen.
Yeah, I'm all there for it. So talk about, for those who may be joining us, this might be their first episode of IndieSeen. They're like, who are these guys? What are 53 Spaceships? Let me ask you, sir, what are 53 Spaceships and what do they have to do with fundraising and movie making?
It's a movie called 53 Spaceships that I'm making, my 7th fiction feature. There's a couple that didn't get finished, so we'll just count the 6 that are done plus the new one. In it, 2 characters that I introduced, Renee and Allison from Slow Romance Movie and Cosmic Disco Detective Renee, which is that's the poster behind me. Those 2 get hired by the government to find 53 ancient spaceships that were found throughout the world and were ultimately moved to New York to further study in a government facility. Those have gone missing. Some of the tech is millions of years old and it's deteriorating. And if it collapses, it could wipe out the entire universe. So they're under pressure to find this stuff. The movie is inspired by movies like Slacker, Chan is Missing, Star Wars, 1977, my own movies, Star Trek, Amelie. So it's a fun, lots of fun. Probably more fun and direct comedy than either of my previous movies. So yeah, that's the project, and I've been working on it for about a year. Now it's ready to be completed and released. Hopefully this summer I can start showing it to critics and some public screenings.
Excellent. Well, look forward to that with great interest, as Palpatine once said.
Awesome.
So let's talk about Friendship. I got this movie like 3 weeks, a month ago now, at a press screening, and as I wrote, and we did a whole live stream about it a couple weeks ago now, talking about this movie, and I described it as it's hilarious, and I wanted to jump underneath my seat because it was so cringeworthy. It is the definition of the comedy of uncomfortability, but even more than that, it is unlike any of the A24 movies that I have seen. Typically, the A24 started as a studio in 2012, around there, and they've specialized in kind of art house and genre films. And I don't recall, someone can keep me honest here, have they done something approaching a broad comedy to this degree? Because it's like the A24 indie genre sensibility, but almost wearing the skin of a kind of a crowd pleasing multiplex friendship comedy.
You clearly are more versed in kind of the finer points of what an A24 film is, but I mean, this film, as I understand anyway, was produced independently, and they picked it up out of TIFF. So it was, a film. It premiered, did extremely well, and sold almost immediately at TIFF, and then they've sort of they did the kind of spot screenings around the country, including at South by, et cetera, and elsewhere. But I guess whatever, I was at a screening where the head of A24, I don't recall his name, basically said, I saw this and knew that it was just we had to do this together. And it really is a cringe. It is a cringe comedy. I mean, it is very much like oh no, and yet it's funny as hell. So I didn't listen to all of your waxing poetic about what you thought about the film, but I anyway, that's my understanding, is that it bubbled up.
Yeah, typically they don't do comedies like this. This is they do like Ari Aster movies where like thriller, suspense, something crazy, blood, gore going on. Did they do Her?
But I think ultimately, well, I was going to say ultimately, though, I think their overarching theme is they want to push the envelope a little bit. I think they want to go in places that are a little bit different, even for genre. I mean, I think, they were giving people like Alex Garland and Ari Aster and some of those kind of people big opportunities with slightly off the beaten path kind of approaches to the story. We talked about Ex Machina a little bit back in a show, and the fact that you start off that movie with one protagonist, and by the midway through you realize the filmmaker is kind of playing a little bit of a ruse on us by actually the protagonist has been in front of us the whole time, and it's Ava. It's not Caleb, the male character that we are conditioned by film to think is, he's got to be the hero. So I think that's true certainly with Friendship too. It plays like a Will Ferrell comedy at first, or one of those kind of things from the 70s that Paul Mazursky might have done with a George Siegel or somebody, Elliot Gould or something like that, and then it turns into this very painful dramedy in its way that is recognizable, but also so verging on, is this man truly troubled, in need of a therapist, and should we be laughing at that? I love the fact that A24 in this film and others kind of challenges the status quo, let alone audiences, and how we're sort of participating in watching it.
One thing Raphael said makes sense. When I saw the movie, I was like, if this had an A24 budget, it sure doesn't look like it. So it makes sense that it was picked up cold as an indie project, but not something that they produced. And I don't think they do that a lot anymore. I think they might have done that a long time ago.
So, Raphael, can you tell me how you got involved in this movie? One of the things that I kind of marveled at was, the writer-director Andrew DeYoung. This is his first feature, right? So
first, yeah.
How'd you get involved? Was it just like a cold, like someone sent you the script, or did you know people who worked on it? Like, hey, we're going to do this thing.
He's done a lot of television.
I'm sorry?
Andrew DeYoung has done a lot of television.
Yeah, it's his first feature though. But he and Tim, I guess, are friends, Tim Robinson. And I've, heard him tell the story basically that he had sort of had a interaction with a guy that he really liked, and as a guy friend, and nothing romantic, but just that they had a connection, and the guy kind of disappeared, and it was sort of a seed of and it really affected him, and it just was a seed of something that kind of, there's actually been there was a huge article in the New York Times the other day about male friendship, and there's been now more and more discussion about men men and the lack of friends that they have. We all still, I think we still live in a world that is, where we have chronic loneliness and depression and anxiety. You know what I mean? At this point, I think if you don't have that, check your pulse. I mean, it's just that's the world we're in. But the post-pandemic kind of experience has been kind of, a lot of isolation. So he really has picked up on that and really told something that feels both very painfully real and funny because of Tim. My involvement honestly is I got to read for it and met him, and he said, yeah, it's shot in New York, and there's a lot of production in New York at the moment. We know that there's no production in LA. I can't remember the last time I shot in LA, honestly. Maybe that will change. But
when was the shot?
It's all on the East Coast.
When was it shot?
My ability to remember time. I think it was about since the pandemic, honestly, like, and you go like, when was that? I have this weird kind of like, I go into like how long ago was that? It used to be more linear. I think it was about a year and a half ago. So give or take. So essentially
22, 23.
I think it was 20. So we're in 25. Yeah, it was about a year and a half ago. Yeah. So essentially, it was a lower budget project. I mean, it wasn't low budget. I've done low budget. This was a lower budget. It wasn't high budget. I've done the high budget. This is very much a kind of a medium indie movie. They had found the financing. Obviously, Tim brings a lot. I don't know the story about the financing and how they kind of put it together. But they clearly having Tim's got a giant audience. He was not on my radar, honestly. And I wasn't, for people that I know who are 20, 30, Tim Robinson is like a rock star. No. He is a giant part of, like, he scratches some very deep itch for them. And I think, this is my armchair therapist sort of thought about that, is that the generation, a younger generation certainly than me, who went through the pandemic and all of those and live in the world that we're in, if it didn't have the kind of ouch to it, it would not quite seem as kind of like, it wouldn't pack as much a punch. Mm-hmm. There's something about that dark element that basically, with the funny, that really resonates with, I think, a generation that's been through terrible stuff and lives in a very complicated world.
Have you guys seen on No Budge Men's Thanksgiving Weekend video?
No.
You guys should look that up. It's very similar, maybe not as dark, to the movie, to Friendship. When I first saw the trailer, I was like, is this by the guy who did Men's Thanksgiving Weekend? In that video, a bunch of men get together, nothing is explained, and they're having a Thanksgiving weekend. It's ridiculous. But about what you were saying about male friendship, yeah, well, having friends is kind of gay, so most people are not into it.
That's a new one on me. I didn't know that. But let me ask. So Raphael, once you kind of signed, well, first of all, you play a character named Garrett, who, I mean, that was the big part of the trailer that when I first saw the Friendship trailer, was the moment where the guys are all kind of sitting around and Garrett's telling his story about this kind of uncomfortability around his daughter who's kind of coming of age, and everyone kind of breaks out into song, and it's very kind of moving. So did you read for Garrett when you auditioned, or did you read for one of the other characters?
Yeah, no, I read for Garrett. I think that it could have gone any number of ways. I mean, as 5 friends, any number of us could have played that part, honestly. It came to me. And by the way, when the trailer hit, and I got a lot of like, dude, I saw you in the trailer kind of emails, I had to sort of qualify their response and say, look, as featured as I am in the trailer, know that this is not the part. My part is not in size relative to my trailer coverage. I think something about that interaction located the themes of the movie for them, and they were, yeah. So that's. I mean, Andrew is an incredibly sort of gentle and unassuming and warm and kind of very humble kind of guy. And there's no sort of swagger or pretension about him. Excuse me. And he was like, yeah, you want to try, and it was very, and yeah. Then the more I found out about Tim Robinson, and of course, Paul Rudd, I'm a huge fan of Paul Rudd. It was a walking onto that set. There was a charged set. It was a lot of firepower there.
Now, in terms of that, give me as honest an answer as you can, because I don't want to put you on the spot here, but everybody loves Paul Rudd. I mean, going back to the days of Clueless. So is he like, in terms of working with him, is he as kind of nice and pleasant and professional, but kind of easygoing as us fans of his would like to imagine? Or were there problems?
100%. No, he's just such a sweet guy. Lives in Brooklyn, with his family. He's just, and I said, how did you, how did this come to you? He said, I read the script and I just thought it was fucking hysterical. And I wanted to do it, because he's Paul Rudd, he can, go off and do Death of a Unicorn or, I don't know, Ghostbusters 6 or whatever it is. And then fit something like this in. Cause I think we shot for a month, or the film shot for a month. So it was a 4-week shoot here in the middle of winter. And he could figure it out. But he this was, to my humble opinion, this is the best of what Paul Rudd does. Like it's funny and sort of grounded, and he's he's like an everyman, and and the whole thing with his hair and all of that, and the being, I don't know, it just he just landed it so well, and he was the perfect kind of, if you want to talk about an Abbott and Costello, he was the perfect Abbott to the Costello. Do you know what I mean? Or Costello to the Abbott. But he just brought a great balance to Tim Robinson. His handsomeness and his sort of appeal played into whatever that relationship was in such a lovely way.
Maybe there's a Avengers type universe where we go into each of the friends that we meet, like your character, other characters, like the guy from Parks and Recreation. I forget the character's name in Parks, but that guy's really funny. Yeah, that would be nice if there's like a friendship universe eventually.
Spin-off movies for each of the characters. That'd be pretty wild.
This is a Tim Robinson. I mean, honestly, this is a huge star vehicle for Tim Robinson. I mean, Tim Robinson is so you can't take your eyes off him. I mean, at least for me anyway. I've seen it twice. I've seen it with audiences who've gone literally crazy in the theater when I've seen it with them. Granted, they're screenings, but there were people just love him, and from the moment he comes on screen, he's just so engaging. He walks a very specific line. It's a weird, quirky, dark, funny line, but there's, we need more comedies, there's not been a lot of comedies, and certainly a lot of comedies that have kind of lifted or had as much response as this, I guess. So I have big hopes for Tim Robinson in terms of doing a whole lot more.
Well, you mentioned that he's kind of on the radar of people who are, younger generation. My younger brother came to visit over Christmas, and he said, we got to watch this show. I think you should leave with Tim Robinson. And I think I knew that Tim Robinson had been on SNL 15 years ago or something like that. And I'd seen him kind of pop up because he has a very distinct kind of look and mannerisms, but I'd never really seen him kind of as a central presence in a show. And we watched a couple episodes just back to back. They seemed to fly by, and they were absurd and weird in a way that reminded me of MTV's The State, from 30 years ago. And so when I found out he was going to be doing this movie, I was very excited. And after it was over, I was actually thinking about another movie that we had talked about, Raphael, one that you were in a number of years ago, Risky Business. That is another, it was in the era of the kind of wide release sex comedy, but it wasn't that. It was also a very dark drama that was about bigger themes of growing up and the horrors of adulthood. So I feel like these are kind of nice companion pieces to one another. And what struck me, and I talk about this on the live stream, right off the bat, the opening scene of the film is that kind of couple's therapy session, and Kate Mara is fidgeting with her wedding ring and almost taking it off when when her husband Craig starts to speak. And I'm thinking, all right, I know, and he comes in and he starts saying this is really awkward and uncomfortable things, gets a lot of big laughs. But I think she's the first character we see, and I noticed right away what she's doing as an actress. I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be a very different kind of film, and yeah, it's different, I think, in all the right ways.
Yeah.
Jeff, what did you not like about the movie? And we can all go around. The movie is a great success, so we're not going to hurt the ticket sales.
Jeff, I think that was aimed at you. Do you have anything that you didn't like about the movie?
Jeff can start.
I liked it a lot. I mean, I think the interesting question, and one that I think you alluded to very well, Raphael, is that I think that the younger generation that are responding to Robinson the way they have has grown up where there are no sort of good old days. They've bad days since they were a kid. Right. And so everything comes tempered. Love, life, going to school, it's got a glaze on it. And what I like about this, and dare I say what I liked about Risky Business at the time, because that was my generation coming out of college. We were in the middle of a recession, and it was about, am I going to get a job? Am I going to make a living? Can I support myself? And the idea of like, well, I can go back, live at home, was not really something most of us were considering as an avenue. It was kind of, sink or swim kind of stuff. And what I think is interesting about this movie is the way it challenges the comedy with its drama. Like I said, I think in this movie, he goes so far, and maybe one of those friends could have been that way too if he was in a similar situation. But I think we're all a little bit on that precipice of like, could I lose it all? Could I lose my job, my family, my sanity? And I think that makes it very funny, but it also makes it very scary. I mean, I found myself very similar to Ian, like about halfway through, it's like, if I was one of those five friends, I'd be or Paul Rudd's character, I would be telling him, you need to see a therapist, the way Sidney Pollack advised Dustin Hoffman in Tootsie. I begged you to get some therapy. Or like in Risky Business, I mean, the palpable panic for the last 40 minutes of that film, almost really the last hour, is Brickman pushed that to a point where it's not really a funny comedy. It's funny, but it's not. Because he's got to get that car back, and he's got to make an impression, and all these. And when Richard Masters shows up, and he's the guy, like, these really aren't the best credits, are they? I mean, you're just in there going like, dude, I can relate to that. It was too soon. So for me, I think the one thing that I watch it thinking is like, I get it, but I was there X number of years ago, and I'm just wondering if we're maybe entering a new phase where comedy can become more of that because the world is more like that, or if this is something that might get lost on people, or they might not realize that there's a certain pathos to this as well. Because I felt very sorry for him.
Yeah, I that's so well said.
Well, thank you.
I think that's right. I mean, dare I say, perhaps this is a new kind of comedy, and it's always interesting to me because American comedy generally doesn't travel, right? It doesn't really generally translate in other countries, right. And comedy does obviously come out of kind of its moment. It's the zeitgeist within which it kind of lands, and that whole Risky Business thing, going into the Reagan era, coming out of kind of I would say a softer era, and then that transition into make money, you got to make money, and all of that. That was timed just the way The Graduate was to plastic, and all that stuff. This was very much I mean, John Avnet had said they were trying to make, you know, a new Graduate for the time, and I think they did that because it holds up, and it's a kind of a time capsule, even though it's still resonant, but not about risky business. In this case, I think also this film, I don't know if we'll be talking about it in 40 years the way we talk about risky business, but it does feel like a pivot into something else. And, you know, a sort of a more wide-eyed kind of, gee, gosh, shucks kind of comedy might not land right now. It might not just seem authentic to the time.
You know, Raphael, it reminded me a little bit, dare I say, and I know people may, I don't know how many of your watchers, Neil Simon, but in the late 60s and 70s, I think Neil Simon was challenging ideas of masculinity and men getting in their own way, whether it was, Felix Unger in The Odd Couple or The Prisoner of Second Avenue, even chapter 2, where the main character could not get past his deceased wife and missing the opportunity of this wonderful woman in front of him. I think there's a little bit of that turn here and that kind of stuff where, 10 years ago, this would have been a Will Ferrell comedy and everything would have been ended up happy. And, that all-American doofus, but he means well. And he'll be reined in. And we've seen some of those kind of Will Ferrell comedies. But this one, to your point, Raphael, I think is if like, Risky Business was The Graduate, this is almost like those sort of edgier masculine valuation comedies that were really, sort of the themes of all those Laughman and Neil Simon plays, but they always had a gravitas to them because of that. And I think here it's like, he at the very end, when he's waving him like he's happy, like he got finally some acknowledgement from, it's like, this is not a happy ending. It's not upbeat. It's really, I almost wanted to go like, oh, I hope that guy's okay. Can I call him?
His wife's not got the truck.
But it would be interesting if that's pushing comedy towards something that maybe isn't necessarily always having to have a happy ending or redemption or whatever, but really examining who are we and maybe who men are coming out of the bro code or, this weird era of OnlyFans, Trump, and, no draft cards, or at least not for a while anyway. I don't know. There seems a certain amount of responsibility that maybe there's having to sort of rise to for all of us, let alone men who maybe have gotten away with being a little bit too much, sort of stunted growth and the college era for well into their 40s.
Right. I think there is something subversive about this, and it is. I think that's probably where it's not going to be for everyone. I'm sure people are walking in and going, "What the?" And I'm certain. But if you can go with it, it kind of packs a punch, and there's so many funny lines and things that kind of, stay with you. The frog and just on and on and on, and you kiss her on the mouth. And there's so many things that are kind of weird and quirky and then just sort of stay with you. So he's done something amazing. And again, the fact that it's his first feature, it's well shot. He's
good with actors, you register, even though, you're talking about not as big a role as indicated by the trailer, but people like you and Kate Mara and all the other characters, we get a sense of who they are. He's good with writing the parts and making them vivid and casting well, I think.
He is. That's right. I think that's right.
The movie is, I think, kind of dark and empty like the character. So the movie kind of is a reflection of the character all the way through. I thought the movie was, there's endless laughs, plays well at the theater, but there's no second, third layer of, it's like a no hugging, no learning Seinfeld type, dark approach to things, because this guy is a crazy person or, completely, person that needs help, as we've been saying. See,
I don't think he's crazy necessarily, Sujewa. I think he's damaged. And I think if they did Seinfeld today, you'd have to address a little bit of what was going on with George Costanza, because he was clearly a man who had been embittered by all of life's experiences and got in his own way. And, it was really damaging. That's what I think is interesting about this is this couldn't have necessarily played the same way 30, 20, 10 years ago. It plays, I think, very much to that post pandemic, post-isolation, kind of like, is anybody out there caring about anybody? We all care just about our name on a coffee cup, the music in our ears, and, you know, I don't have to even get out of my pajamas to go to work in the morning because I'm working remotely, kind of methodology that I think this guy is just, he's not connected anymore. Somewhere along the line, he became disconnected.
That's what I mean by crazy. The movie takes it to surreal levels where he's breaking into the apartment, and you know, that's 5 times above what any normal person would do.
Yeah, and I think this is something I think I talked about on the review episode, is that, you know, when we meet this family, you know, the wife has just survived, you know, cancer, and that has sort of like ripped the stability, the normalcy of this family apart. You almost want to see what they were like before this happened, because that isolation, the growing closer to the, you know, the mother and son, kind of their bond increasing while the dad is kind of drifting away. There's that whole funny line of like, yeah, the new neighbor wants you to invite you over for a party tonight. He's like, I've got stuff going on. She's like, no, you sit there at 8 o'clock every night just in your chair looking at your phone. Yeah, he probably is just unaware of how, you know, that is he probably has a vivid inner life in which he's actually doing stuff and interacting with people, but that might be remnants of the life he had before his wife got sick and he had to step up and take care of her. And now he doesn't have anybody to express that to. He doesn't have any other friends, people that can relate to even what he's going on. So in that party scene, when people are opening up and the Garrett character is talking about his daughter, and everyone kind of, you know, sings to him and kind of brings him around, lightens up the mood, he probably thought that he had found his people, but he also doesn't know how to interact with people. So he kind of blows himself up to impress folks, but that turns people off. There's that incredible finale to the boxing scene where he eating soap and talking about how he's been a bad boy, and that's the last straw for everybody. But he has gone a little bit crazy, but he's calling out for help, but other people don't quite know how to receive the signal. There is a lot going on here. I think, Sujewa, I think there are different layers to this movie, but they're not necessarily layers that the movie has answers for or is going to kind of address for you. You kind of like have to take this out of the theater and think about it for a while.
So there's a sloppy quality to the script. I mean, one thing that explains everything is this was an indie movie that was made, you know, at the tail end of the pandemic, 22, 23, where people are still recovering from the pandemic. So you can't expect everything to be neat, but Andrew DeYoung has a lot of great experience. He did Our Flag Means Death. He did Pen 15, and those are big budget TV shows. So he's got the ability to make something. Also, you know, this is a lot like a lot of the internet comedy that I've seen, you know, for like the last maybe 5-10 years at No Budge, at Funny or Die, and lots of other places. There's people, and they even shot it in that way. It's a square frame. It doesn't look cinematic, and it's, you know, it's not they didn't put a lot of the effort into trying to create like it's made on film, blah blah blah, like a Woody Allen Manhattan type thing. They made it look like, oh, this is a internet TV show about a weird dude, and and that's interesting. That's connecting with a lot of people. But it's 4:30 here. Raphael, tell us all about Cannes, all the crazy adventure. How did you get into that project, History of Sound, and how did you get invited to Cannes out of that?
Yeah, I've never been to Cannes before. It's I've never been to Sundance because I don't want to go to a festival, honestly, if I don't have a film there, and I haven't had a film yet at Sundance. So I'm not. There is a lot of people that kind of go just to kind of network, and I just don't. To me, that becomes like Vegas. Like I like it for 12 hours, and then I want to run. You know. But History of Sound is it's a big sweeping movie, and it is a love story. Basically, how do I explain it? essentially you have an older character sort of really in voiceover talking about his experience of his life, and there's an encounter between him and another man that he has. They both share this love of music, and it is a kind of a then almost sort of in a way, I mean, where one plays into it, but it's almost like an episodic kind of a retelling of his life, as it were, as he kind of really sort of explores this. And I again auditioned for it. And then was called in to meet with the director. And the character, as are most of the characters in the movie, they're not big characters. They are, a few scenes, because again, he just continues to move through and to the next chapter and the next chapter and the next chapter. But what was significant for me was, in this case, I spent a month learning how to play the violin.
Wow.
and which was not an easy one to pick up. It's a very instrument, at least well enough to be able to kind of fake it on screen. And then it was a really, it's based on a short story, and the script is beautiful. And it was a really, Oliver Jimenez, who did a beautiful movie called Living. If you happen to see it, extremely skilled filmmaker, and what's his name? Bill Nye basically was nominated for an Oscar for his performance in it. Gorgeous movie. This was a really creative, interesting, dynamic experience to just kind of find these scenes. And it was really, delightful to be there. Everyone came in, everyone was there, is great at what they do. And there was a sense of kind of just sort of excitement about it. Everyone was like, this is a wonderful project. This is a wonderful project. So that's what we all sort of felt. And as far as Cannes concerned, I did a short as well. During the strike, I got offered a lovely short, and that was also at Cannes. So I had 2 movies at Cannes, and I wasn't going to go. I thought I was going to get a job. There was a job that was coming, and then it didn't come at the last minute. They went the other way, as sometimes happens. And I was like, okay, screw it. Let's just go. And so my wife and I went. It's unlike any other film festival I've ever been to. I mean, it's not like the kind of the baseball caps and the XXL sweatshirts that you sort of, normally go to most film festivals. It is a sort of European kind of glamour and glitz, and then Hollywood, and then kind of sort of sophistication. You can't even go to your premiere unless you're wearing a tuxedo, and they make it extremely clear what you will literally be turned away if you don't have, all of those elements. Women have to have evening gowns, and they must wear heels. I mean, and everywhere you walk in this kind of area around Cannes de la Croisette, which is the sort of the main drag, right off the beach, everyone is, just the women are whooped. I mean, the hair, the makeup, the gowns, really expensive gowns, and the eyelashes. I mean, like, I don't know who they all are, but they're just like all of them just dressed and ready for their close-up. It was sort of wild to be amongst that. And then there's just sort of a buzz. I mean, I was reading in the papers about, how tariffs were hitting Cannes, and, and all it had taken some of the steam. I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a lot of very powerful people. Everyone has projects. Everyone's either looking for cast, looking for funding, launching their next, or they've got a trailer or a sizzle, or, like there's, making deals. And I had a lot of friends there, so I sort of went out to a lot of lunches and dinners. But the experience in this case of actually being in the competition, sorry, this is a long answer. I hope this is okay. Basically, there's the competition, which is, 12, 14 movies. It's sort of like basically the top layer. And then there are all these other kind of smaller sort of sections of the festival, including the Acid Festival and Directors Fortnight, and then this thing with the shorts. And um, being sort of brought in. It's run like a military operation. The security and the kind of the detail of it all. You know, we were at a cocktail party before. One of the actresses, she told me, was wearing literally $7 million in jewelry that was donated for the event. She had an emerald ring that I've never seen. Anyway, and so we get whisked into these very, very extravagant BMW kind of transport vehicles, and then we arrive and the doors open and there's literally like crowds of people on, bandstand seating, kind of screaming and yelling, and, and then you turn and then you face the red carpet and the stairs. There are literally 1,000 photographers there. You've never seen so many photographers, and there's sound and glitz and lights. And they're like, there's someone on a PA system announcing everyone. And then you sort of come out and you face one side and they photograph you. And then you face the other side and they photograph, and then they do various, it's so wild in terms of kind of for that moment of kind of glitz and glamour of what kind of, I guess, Hollywood is. Sorry, do you want more so then basically you get taken from there. There's a camera on the kind of the core group of us. We literally are followed into the theater. My wife was sitting in the theater. Getting her a ticket was like literally like an act of Congress. It was so hard. It's the biggest theater you've ever seen, and it's completely sold. You can't get tickets. I couldn't get tickets to the other screenings as well because they literally sell out in like 3 minutes. And I happened to be busy the night because my stepson got married. So we were busy with the wedding, and I couldn't go online at that moment. So I couldn't see any other screenings. But there's literally like more people than you've ever seen in a theater. In this giant theater with a huge balcony. We get brought in. There's literally, again, a camera on all of us. Everyone applauds. We sit down, the movie starts. Then the lights come up, the cameras come back out, and then people start applauding, and they applauded for 9 minutes.
Wow.
It was, again, just crazy. And again, we're on camera. I had friends here watching the entire thing in a live stream. And, it's so kind of elegantly produced. And I overheard I don't know his name. So at some point you go up the steps, and the director and Paul Mescal basically, you shake, they say they're, I guess the gentleman and the grand dame of Cannes. I don't know their names. I'm certain that's findable, but thank you. Anyway, I saw him talking. There's a dinner after the event, after the screening. And I saw him talking to Oliver, the director, and he said, it's very easy. He said, basically, we picked the films. Everyone loved your film from the moment they watched it. And he said, you put it on a screen, and then after the movie, your life changes. And, it's such an interesting thing because, I mean, if you think about, what Cannes does, because it is really, it is such a kind of predictor of the Oscar. It is obviously, in this case, again, kind of the first of then what is then so many other festivals. And the timing of it is such that and the way it's produced, and again, the kind of the glam of it really is a way to kind of set up a movie and launch it. And so either it connects or it doesn't. And obviously a bunch of sales did happen right before and after. Neon got in there and grabbed the Palme d'Or winner. I can't wait to see that film. And it's the machinery that's part of this whole thing that launches a project. I mean, you think about all the years and years and years of preparation that had to go into actually make, to make any movie. It's impossible. It's a miracle that anything gets made. Honestly, it's so hard. And so the fact that it's actually there and then finally arrives, they do literally everything they can to just give you as big a send-off as they possibly can.
This is a different side of the film world than what you've been involved in the past. So did you reflect on that while you were there, thinking, wow, this is a whole other side of the film world?
Yeah. I mean, look, you know, I've done this my whole life. I mean, over 50 years. I've seen kind of a little bit of everything. I've done 5 shows on Broadway. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, opening on Broadway is about as exciting as you possibly can get. And frankly, that's exciting because you're actually doing it and you're performing it, and then you're walking off stage, and wiping away the sweat, and then getting in your outfit and going to the party. So there's something and it's so dynamic. I've been in big movies. I've been in small movies. I've done, I've never had an experience quite like this. It's I don't know. It's just another facet of it. I mean, I think someone could get stuck there because it's like, it's literally the best dessert you've ever tasted.
Nice.
But then it's gone, right? Poof, and you got to go back and you got to do the laundry, and you got to, figure out, about, all the details of your life. And it's so up there in that kind of in the clouds in a way of some kind of a hyper reality that is sort of the Hollywood and glitz. But the best part, I guess, is having done this for so long. It just was sort of it's a wild experience. Who knows if I'll ever have that again? And I really appreciate, how they do it, because it's unlike anything you've ever seen.
It's a French national thing. I mean, I think they take it more seriously than anything Hollywood, does, just because of that. I mean, it's, when it's a government-funded thing that's or control thing that goes out to the world, it's like their way of saying, yeah, Hollywood exists, but here's something better. So it's wild. Hopefully you took a lot of photos. I follow Cannes really closely. Hey, Ian, guess who was on the jury?
Who? Oh, no. Hong Sang-soo. Yeah.
Ian doesn't like Hong Sang-soo movies.
I appreciate that Hong Sang-soo exists and is making movies. I'm just kind of, hit or miss on him.
I got you.
Julia Binoche's on there too. You like her at least, Ian. See, she balances it all out.
And the 2 people were probably Iris Nablock and Thierry Fermot. Those are probably the 2 people that you were talking about.
Oh, the heads of Cannes.
Yeah, Raphael.
Very good. Thank you for helping with that. I don't follow Cannes, so and I appreciate. I mean,
all my favorite directors have come out of Cannes. Jarmusch, lots of people.
Yeah.
Did you meet any famous people besides like your co-stars, of course?
No, I didn't. I mean, there's some parties that I went to, but they probably weren't high profile enough parties. There's parties every night, party all day long every night, and everyone's trying to scramble to get into this party or that party, and getting in, like, you have to have, again, security, and it's a real deal. Your name's on the list, and you have to wristband. You got to pick up the wristband the day before, and and there's, again, dress codes, and everything is kind of really kind of managed. So I perhaps wasn't at the right party to meet all of those other celebrities. Or what happens is those big celebrities probably come in just like we did. We had a dinner the night before the screening, a private dinner, for 100 or something. And then we had the cocktail party before the screening. And then after the screening, after all the you walk down the stairs, they take more pictures of you. And then you literally, it's just madness. You get whisked back into the BMWs, and they take you again in in like a whole, what is that? Tandem kind of BMWs to then another place. And we had a sit down dinner for another 50 or 60 people. And they're probably all at that point, the money people, the people from Focus Features, and the people from Universal, because they own Universal, and the director and the actors, etc. But it seems like, again, I have not, my first time and maybe my last time being there, but we were in a very controlled environment. So there's security at all times. There's kind of you are in your pod. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of kind of hanging out with those other big films.
Well,
like
let me ask.
well, like a wedding sounds like. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
like a wedding.
Real
I
lot,
want
a lot of cameras. Yeah.
as far as, because I saw some of the footage of you and Paul and you know, Mescal and the director going up the stairs and all the pictures and stuff. You looked very, you know, you didn't look nervous. You looked like you'd done this a thousand times, but this is your first time at Cannes, and everything that well, yeah, you're a pro, but just, and you're talking about the military kind of precision of how everything works there. Was there anybody to kind of give you the conversation that we're having right now? Like, here's what you can expect, or did you just kind of get thrown into it? Did you have handlers, or were just like you show up, here's your itinerary, you show up here and then you'll figure it out?
I did have a handler. Every email I got was CC'd to 20 different people.
Nice.
You know, when I finally got the invitation, because it was a question as to whether or not I would be invited. And I thought I would go there for the short, but then I let them know, like, I'm going to be there. And they're like, and then finally it was like, yes. And when it came big. There's a lot of coordination. There's a lot of, nothing happens by accident. Everyone who's managing it is, you know, type AAA essentially. And so nothing is left to chance. I did have a handler who basically then coordinated with me, make sure I knew where I needed to go at every moment. When I got, you know, literally even when I got to the cocktail party, he met me at the door. You know, you have to get passes. You have to have, you know, passes on passes to get to various other events. And it's, you know, but in terms of kind of, I mean, look, I don't follow Cannes, but I was aware of the fact that we were going to walk into a zoo, and you know, I don't drink anymore. But I certainly, if there were a moment where I was going to drink, that would be a one to kind of like, because it was a high charged moment, you know. It was like, wow, yeah. I guess I just decided. Sorry, this is a follow up on the scene. Is that I just decided, like, look, again, I have this perspective of how we are. You know, I've had years where I work a lot, and then I have years literally where I can't get arrested. And the upside of that is I have enormous humility about how hard this is. The fact that I'm a 60-year-old man at this point, being able to, and I still have a career, is a miracle, because it's, you know, it's much easier to have bursts and not not necessarily be able to do this your whole life as I have. So I have infinite gratitude for that. But I also in that moment said, fuck it, I'm going to enjoy this. I'm just going to enjoy it. And I who knows when I'll ever be back here. So that's why perhaps I thought, you know, I looked calm. I just sort of thought, I'm just gonna enjoy the moment.
What's the name of the short? I want to do some promo for it.
Okay, I have a bunch of videos and things that I still need to post. Probably I've just I mean, yeah.
Raphael, if you don't mind me asking, and I know you probably get asked this a lot as a veteran of the industry, but you know, you've been at it for 40 years and done so many things as a filmmaker, as an actor, television, movies, voiceover, et cetera, et cetera. What advice do you give to people to have the lasting power that you've had?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I was just talking to a bunch of screenwriters at SCAD, and I'm about to, tomorrow morning, I'm going to be going up to UCSB to talk to the students there as well. And I am, I wish I knew entirely, because I don't know that, you know, that there is always some luck and fortune in it, which is frustrating. One of the things that I'm aware of is that we hit periods where we have to, what we were doing doesn't work anymore. What I did at 20, when I was 18, literally had just turned 18 when I did Risky Business. And then I did Vision Quest, I did my science project, a big burst of things. And then, you know, at 25, what I was doing at, you know, and then at 35, you know, suddenly you're throwing your best, you know, fastball, and it's not working. So you have to figure out a way to kind of somehow transition and pivot and find ways to continue to sort of reinvent yourself and figure out where you're working from. to me anyway, that's been an important defining, just as an artist, like how do I, where am I now? What are my strengths now? What are my experiences that I can bring to this now? Because what things do, the well goes dry. And there are, as we know, there's a million child actors who were great in that episode, in whatever, 70s TV show, but, and they still, are they still working? And that's, I think being able to continue to sort of define and redefine. I mean, I became a filmmaker, I started working on other things. I've tried.
Podcast co-host. That's probably why Cannes invited you. They saw inside the art house.
So I started this inside the art house because, I made this film, but I have this great sensitivity for how hard it is for filmmakers to get heard, to get noticed, for filmmakers like to get, for anyone to know about it. And so working with Greg Lemley, who runs Lemley Theaters and has a great sort of a presence in the world of independent cinema, even around the country, the idea was to kind of spotlight them and give them at that moment, at that Olympic moment when their movie is opening in theaters, let's do everything we can to promote the shit out of that and to help them. And it's done extremely well, and it continues to have momentum, which is great. But though, I just keep trying to find ways to kind of keep myself interested and curious, or continue to sort of find ways to kind of redefine myself, I guess, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely.
And that's a hell of an answer. One second, Sujewa, I have one question because I don't want to forget it. But you were talking about at Cannes, the lady you were talking to with the $7 million of jewelry on. You're talking about being at Cannes. You're an industry veteran, but you still have that sense of wonder at this completely new experience. Which, especially as we get older, new experiences can be rare to come by because it's easy to get stuck in a rut. Did you encounter anybody who had been so involved with Cannes for so many years that they were just like, oh, another party, another great dessert, more jewelry? Did you see any of that cynicism, or were people generally kind of into it and kind of happy to be there?
There's a lot of enthusiasm about it. And let me just side note, by the way, the $7 million in jewelry, she didn't own that. The jewelry came literally with 2 guards that followed her everywhere. And we went to the dinner and she literally stripped her everything. They took everything off without, and she came back in, like jeans. And anyway, when you get to Cannes, if you are in the competition, that is, why are you here? Someone's, oh, I'm looking for, funding for my movie, or I've got, I'm trying to get this star to kind of help, or I've got a screenplay, or there's a lot of people who, as I say, come to network. When you say, oh, my film is in competition, it's like, whoa, really? So it has like people get very excited about it because it means something. And I didn't really understand that, I was at a party one of the first nights I got there, and they said, why are you here? And I said, I've got 2 movies here. And they literally I didn't understand how meaningful that was as relates to kind of the currency of Cannes. Because there is a sense of kind of even what parties you can get into based upon, the bracelets or who et cetera. Everyone's like, did you get into the party? I want to get into the party. Can you get me into the party? There's kind of that thing. So again, to be sort of a part of that even from Cannes' point of view, they take great excitement and pride and are thrilled by, everyone wants to see the movie. They're checking the app because there's an app that you can sort of go on and, if someone falls out, if you get there, you can get a ticket, or people literally stand in full evening attire that is a tuxedo or for 4 hours waiting for someone to possibly fall out so they can maybe get a seat at the premiere.
Wow.
So the question I had was, what's the name of the short and how did you get involved with that short that ended up in Cannes? That sounds like another wild story.
Yeah, I just got straight offered. It's a really talented young filmmaker. It's called Loving Day. It is basically about it was wildly timely. He's Korean and his wife is white, and he made a movie sort of way before our current situation. But essentially, the idea is that the famous Loving versus Virginia, which allows interracial marriage, gets reversed at the Supreme Court, and suddenly this couple's about to get married, and they're literally faced with this moment of what do you do? And when it came along about a year or so ago, I thought, oh, this is interesting. It's now freakishly timely and terrifying. So he got wonderful response there, and his name is Daniel Kim. So yeah, huge shout out to him.
Your first con experience sounds like you started at the top in competition.
You bet, man.
It's all downhill from here.
I am not going back to that festival or any festival unless I'm there essentially with a project. Because again, like I said, I'm not a Klingon.
Well, we certainly appreciate you hanging out and sharing this experience. This episode was almost completely neatly divided between friendship and con. So thank you very much, Raphael. This has been really great.
It's an inside look that few get.
Yes, that's very true.
Because a lot of people don't even talk about it because I guess they don't want to offend con in any way because they don't want to be re-invited.
Well, I think we've done quite the advertisement for that festival. It sounds really wonderful. Yeah, but Raphael, next time you go to Cannes with a film in competition, come back and we'll talk about it. See if it's still amazing.
I wonder if I would do it differently. I don't know.
Maybe some $7,000 jewelry.
Yeah, $7,000, right? The $7 million I'll leave for someone else. Look, it's no matter. I can't imagine even if you've done it several times that this would not be exciting. It is as exciting as it gets, is what I'm saying.
Like the Woody Allen line about sex,
which is
it's never bad, something like that.
Yeah, right. Okay, there you go. So
even bad sex is good, or something like
that. Right. So it's a wild experience, and I wish it for all of you to have. So because it's definitely an interesting encounter.
One wacky thing about this past edition was we had an American indie filmmaker with French New Wave, the movie Nouvelle Vague, about the making of Godard's famous movie, which is a big
yeah. I'm really excited to see that Linklater film. Yeah. Oh, actually, that reminds me, Sujewa. Raphael, when does History of Sound come out? Is that going to be like a big fall awards thing, or is there a plan?
I think so. It'll be a fall thing. Yeah, it'll be a fall thing.
Okay.
And I asked them for a date. I think I'm sure they're looking at the calendar for other movies and others. That's way above my pay grade. So, all right. Well, I think it'll be in the fall.
Cool. We'll definitely be on lookout for it. What's that?
What else is coming up, Raphael, on your career?
The only other thing to say is that I've got other than the more inside the art house episodes, which are coming out every week. There is a really cool series on HBO that'll premiere in September called Task with Mark Ruffalo. And it is written by the guy who wrote Mayor of Easttown. If you saw that with Kate Winslet, fantastic writer. It's a really gritty Philadelphia working class kind of show. And the trailer just landed right before I left for Cannes. I haven't even put it out there yet, but HBO just put it out. It's fucking cool as hell. It's a really cool show. Anyway, I'm excited about that coming out.
Well, if the trailer's out, I will link it down below if I can nab it and post it. So yeah. Okay. Great. Well, yeah, congratulations on all your success. And again, thank you for sharing some stories of that success here with us on IndieSeen. Folks, we're gonna get out of here, but we'll be back probably next month talking about something independent and awesome. But I am, as always, Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Jeff York of the establishingshot.org and Pipeline Artists, Sujewa Ekanayake, the NYC filmmaker himself, whose 53 Spaceships movie is now on GoFundMe. So check that information out down below and be sure to
donate lots of money.
There you go. We gotta get that out there, get it made, get it finished. And we have Raphael Sbarge of all the things we have talked about today, including Inside the Art House and Friendship and History of Sound. And what was the name of the short again?
It's called Loving Day.
Loving Day. Okay.
Great look inside Cannes from a
Yes.
person who was there for 2 movies. So this is a very unique episode. We can promote this forever until the next.
Yes, it's evergreen, as they say. But anyway, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to let you all get back to it. Raphael, you have a safe and wonderful trip, brightening the minds of students out in California. And yeah, until next time. Oh, sorry, got to do the things. If you like this show, please like and subscribe and all that business. Please be sure to support everybody's work. The links are down below. And until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thank you very much and take care.
Great show. See you guys.